Hello and welcome to another episode of the ExpertCPG Commerce podcast. My name is Ryan Flynn, the founder and CEO of ExpertCPG Commerce. We help brands reach more customers on Amazon and beyond. And on today's episode, I'm really excited to welcome Shaz and Kiku Chowdhury to the show. They're two sisters who developed the brand Shaz and Kiks. It's a premium beauty, premium hair care brand with a lot of kind of Indian influence, as they describe in the episode. So back to the spending summers in India with their grandmother. Great story there on kind of how they came to be and grow this into a brand that's now sold on Sephora online, and they're looking for other big expansion here into the coming year. So great conversation, just talking about business, family with business, and I really appreciate everything they share around that. And if you're a brand that's on Amazon, maybe looking to get on Amazon, you're like, hey, what, are we doing everything we could be on Amazon, or should we be on Amazon? We'd love to talk to you. So you can just go to expertcpg.com, and we would be happy to connect with you, have a conversation. If you're not on Amazon, find out if Amazon might be right for you. And then if you are on Amazon, we'd have you talk about what our audit entails. We can actually do a full audit where we can actually deep dive into your Amazon account, show you some things that are working, but also some opportunities. We can always find some typically, whether you're doing it yourself, working with an agency. We typically find there's just things that a lot of brands don't know, things they could be doing and levers they could be pulling. So we'd love to talk to you about that. Just go to expertcpg.com and you can connect and contact us there. All right, let's talk to Shaz and Kiku from Shaz and Kiks. All right, on today's show, I'm really excited to welcome to the program Shaz and Kiku Chowdhury, two sisters who have started the brand Shaz and Kiks. So welcome both of you to the show.
Thanks, Ryan. Thanks so much for having us. We're excited to chat with you.
Yeah, likewise. Excited to hear your guys' story and share your story, right? I know it's, again, as I joked before we started recording, it's probably a story you've told a million times before, right? But obviously there's going to be some new ears listening to this who haven't seen this and heard your story. And the reason we love doing these kind of founder stories is, it's great to hear how they started, the idea, and, all the trials and tribulations along the way as you continue to build this brand. So I'd love for you guys just to, let's kick it off. I'd love to get a little background just on you guys and yourself and how the brand got started.
Yeah, so Shaz and Kiks, we are a hair wellness brand. We create highly concentrated, high-performing formulas with eco-conscious, nutrient-rich Indian herbs and flowers that are rooted in Ayurveda, the world's oldest healing system, which originates from the Indian subcontinent. We are first-generation Indian Americans. As you mentioned, Ryan, we're also sisters, so it's a family-run business. I'll tell a little bit about myself, and then I'll pass it over to Shaz. We're both first-time entrepreneurs. We don't come from beauty or beauty manufacturing. We have a whole gamut of other types of skill sets that are obviously very helpful for us to start our business. But yeah, we're first-time beauty entrepreneurs, and we started our journey. We started conceptualizing Shaz and Kiks in 2018, and then we launched officially towards the end of 2020. My background is I'm a digital native. I'm worked in the world of digital marketing and media and tech. For many years, I worked at Condé Nast, the big publishing company. I ran digital strategy and innovation for publications on Vogue.com and GQ.com, and then across multiple Condé Nast titles. At that time, it's about 20. And yeah, my expertise is really around kind of media, the online experience, brand marketing, and a bit of digital tech.
Awesome. Thank you, Kiku. Yes, it's maybe hard to top that, although I don't know who's younger and who's older. So I don't know who's...
That's always a fun question. That's a fun guess.
I'm not going to guess. I know well enough not to guess, but yeah. Kiku, are you older?
I am the older sister.
Oh, Shaz's the older sister.
Okay. I'm actually the older sister by almost 9 years, or nine years, essentially.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So there's quite a bit of age difference between us. But yeah, I'll just talk a little bit about ourselves, and then I can kind of get into how we started. I started out my career as a chemical engineer. I worked in oil and gas for a number of years. And then got my MBA just because I wanted to broaden my horizons and, to be able to get into different industries and be able to do different roles, which is kind of then what I did in the next 20 years of my career, which, I worked at companies like 3M. I've always been really in the innovation space, whether that's from the marketing side or from the R&D side. eventually I actually got the really unique experience of moving to Dubai and working for a medical device, like a multinational medical device company, with launching and really like growing their emerging country business. So that was an amazing experience, trying to understand, China and South Africa in the same breath. So then came back to the US, again, I've done like a lot of like strategy roles, business development, M&A, and then eventually was running P&Ls within like larger corporations of about like 350 million upwards. And then in 2018, Kiku and myself, like fortuitously came back to Texas, which is the state in which we grew up. We both moved back, Kiku from New York and myself from Dubai. And, and we'd always wanted to do something. We've always been really close as sisters, even though there is this like 10-year gap between us. But we've always been really close as sisters. We've always wanted to do something together. So we felt like it was the right time. And it was kind of like fortuitous that we were both back in Texas, as well as having actually now accumulated, so many years of just like overall experience in all sorts of different industries and roles. So in 2018, we started really brainstorming on the things that we were passionate about. And I think a few different things. We wanted to do something that celebrated our heritage, because we're still very close to our heritage, being Indian Americans. And then we also wanted to do something, we really started to see hair care as an interesting space and a bit of a white space. We, both of us have always loved beauty, even though we've never really worked in beauty before. And we started to really see like within the space of hair, whereas Korean beauty, the impact that it's had on the world of skincare. For hair, even in like the 2017, 2018, it was really still very basic. And it was like your basic shampoo, conditioner. And it was, your styling was actually like more of the main product. But it hadn't kind of gone through that revolution of really taking care of your hair and your scalp versus just like fixing problems and making it look good. So that was kind of a really aha moment. And on top of that, we actually, like when we were growing up, we spent all of our childhood summers back in India in the lush green foothills of the Himalayas, which is where my mother is from, and spent tons of time with our grandmother, who was a big Ayurvedic practitioner. And really, we would help her pick plants from our garden in the morning. And she would make these like beautiful, like botanical blends that then you would put into your hair and then your face, using all like the power of plants to really have this like preventative routine with your hair care as well as your skincare. But as I mentioned, after years then of like having our own hair journeys of, with me, like postpartum after having children, all my hair started falling out. And then it was just like this up and down continuous hair journey. And then with Kiku also, she was in her, in her 20s, she did a lot of heat styling. So like just damaged hair from that, that really started getting us thinking of like how when we were teenagers, our hair was the healthiest when we were doing a lot of those practices with our grandmothers. So kind of taking both like the industry trends as well as our own experience, and something that we were very passionate about was how we came up with the concept of Shaz.
Yeah. And we've also seen, and also over the past decade, we've seen a lot of more of the Eastern approach to overall kind of well-being and health and fitness, again, starting from, through decades of things like yoga and meditation, all the way to, power ingredients like turmeric and ashwagandha, really entering kind of the Western hemisphere. And so we knew that there was definitely this appetite for it. People really wanted to live a little bit more of what we say, like that Eastern approach of being more preventative versus treating a problem once it happens. And that's kind of really the philosophy that we grew up in, a lot of Eastern households grew up in. And that's all kind of where Ayurveda really originates from. And it's kind of holistically taking care of your entire body, where you are, kind of incorporating these daily practices into, every kind of aspect of your life to lead like a long-term healthy overall, kind of life and lifestyle. And hair is something that's so important to South Asian women and Indian women. It's definitely like it's not a secret where Indian women are famous for, long, healthy, luscious hair around the world. And that's, not by accident. It's something that we're really taught to take care of the wellness of it from within, from the time that we're kids. And a lot of these practices have been passed down almost orally, generation to generation, by women in the household. And they've been really kind of contained within the South Asian community. And, we had the obviously wonderful experience of growing up with it. And then, as we kind of got older and, we didn't have those wonderful opportunities to always spend every single summer back with our grandma and our families back in India, we really realized the impact of it and the benefits of it, and we started missing them. And we're like, it's not just for us, and it's not just something that within our household, it's not just for Indian women. They're universally beneficial. And how can we, kind of globally share them, and then also give them like new life and really bring them with integrity, but also with like innovation and something that is like a really exciting sensorial experience, and really reimagining these ancient rituals to like the modern day consumer.
Yeah, I love that. What an awesome story. Like, just to be able to tap into that heritage and, you type it to you guys growing up, right? And like then create a product out of it. So let me ask you, was it like a epiphany? Were you guys like at the kitchen table late at night, a bunch of crumpled up papers on the table, like writing all those ideas, and like it all kind of came together? Or did it take some time to kind of weave, your passion for beauty, your heritage? Was it quick, or did it take some time to kind of come to that when you were coming up with that original idea?
I think we were thinking of what we wanted to do. And then we always used to go to our parents' house for Thanksgiving. And during that time, our mother also, like, they spent a few months in India, actually, now that they're retired. And she had just come back. And she always comes back with all these, like, goodies of kind of like, Ayurvedic, this shampoo and that shampoo, and like, just different
ingredients. Yeah.
Which is always like, it's really exciting for us anyway. And then for that weekend, we were trying out all these products. And so all of these things started to like really like click in our minds of the memories of how our hair was the healthiest. And then even using those products, even in that weekend, and then like a couple of weeks beyond, we're like, wow, these are so efficacious. But the only thing was really that, they're not, a lot of the stuff anyway is very DIY, right? Because it's like, it just like goes down generations of women in a family, the, specific recipes or this and that. So it's DIY. Even some of those products from India, like they're very basic. So I think the other thing that we really wanted to do was like bring some innovation, bring some like newness to it versus just like, just this like, here's another shampoo. Now it has Indian ingredients in it. So we can talk about that a little bit later, but like one of the other aspects of our mission is really also to bring innovation. And like we like to say, like we want to make you as the customer look forward to your wash routine or your hair care routine and be excited about these products, because typically no one's like that excited about their hair care products. But we want the experience to be such that it's like so sensorial and so amazing that you look forward to it.
That's awesome.
But it was kind of like we moved pretty fast. I feel like there was like, we like moved back, we started talking, and it's also like I'm like a super obsessive person. I feel like when I get an idea in my head, like I just like I can't sleep. I don't need to go in the bathroom. Like it's like I feel like once it kind of started, we started kind of talking about it. And at that point, I was out. I mean, we were still both working full time at our corporate jobs, but I was like kind of at my wit's end. I was ready to like I'm ready. I'm ready to like be an entrepreneur. I'm ready to kind of do our own thing for us to like, really be, kind of create our own career and create something from nothing that really kind of comes from within. And, once we started honing in on like, okay, let's really bring these ancient hair care rituals and practice ingredients to like, to the Western market, we really kind of moved pretty fast. And again, like we mentioned in the beginning, we don't have any background in this. We don't have any background or knowledge about beauty manufacturing at all. So, but it's like, once we got the idea, we were like, we started talking about it like in September of 2018. And by December of 2018, we were, starting to like secure our first manufacturing partner. So it did move quite fast, and it was like once an idea enters that I can't not like obsessively think about it. So yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a good problem to have, right? So you move quickly on the idea, right? You said you had that first manufacturing partner in December of 18. Were you guys just looking, did you already have an idea of what the market, like who the market you're going after? Or like, because I know, speaking from my own experience even too, when you start, you want to be everything to everybody, right? But then, you got to realize as you go over time, like, oh, you really do have to niche down or go after that. So was it like, hey, let's just get the product out there and figure out our market, as we go along? Or did you kind of have a honed in market from the start? What would you say there?
Yeah, I think one of the main goals, one of our main overall goals, which obviously still continues to be today and will always be, is really making these very kind of like regional, culturally specific formulas and ingredients really globally accessible and really bring them to like, and it's probably like, for some marketers are like, okay, well, this probably isn't a great idea, but it is really for all hair types and textures. And like one of our main goals is to really show that even though like these ingredients come from a very specific part of the world, they are so universally beneficial for all hair types and textures. So we always had that idea, we also started creating products formulated for different hair types and textures. But we'll say, I feel like the first year or so, you kind of really dig into like your like almost ready-made community. And that first was, of course, South Asian women. They were familiar with these ingredients or familiar with what we were trying to do. And, today there's still our core demo. So, it was nice that we were able to like very quickly connect with that specific demographic where not a lot of an education or heavy lifting was needed. They immediately got it. And at that time, and when we launched towards the second half of 2020, a lot of things were happening, kind of, culturally and like, socially as the world was changing, right? People were, the first year of COVID, people were home. People were also kind of changing a lot of their behaviors where they were not going to the hair salons and they weren't really so obsessed with how like the styling of their hair was, but it's more about like the wellness of it, the rest of your body, right? People were really digging in to really trying to build real like health and wellness at every part of their body. And so when we launched with this hair wellness product, it really did, it was a really good time and people were home and they were really trying to figure out how to take care of their hair. People were really trying to also really embrace their natural, whatever their natural texture and type was versus like women were, beforehand were always at straightening and blow drying and trying to get their hair all super smooth and straight, even if that wasn't what your natural texture was. But all that to say is that we kind of came in with this, like a little bit of like a ready-made community that were very familiar with this. And so they instantly grabbed on. But from day one to date, we always wanted to celebrate our roots. Of course, there was like a community, South Asian women, they were very familiar with these type of practices, but we really want to invite everybody in. So, it's always finding that balance of like celebrating the roots, making sure everybody's welcome and, seen in, within the hair world that we're creating.
Yeah. Yeah. You talk about the pandemic, right? And, it's looking back on it now, a couple years later, it's such an interesting time. Like there were so many, you're right. It changed everything like culturally, socially. Like I even think about the aspect of people not be able to go to a salon and maybe do stuff to their hair and like exploring more maybe D2C type products. Explain to me, you mentioned that some of the benefits, like obviously, did you have supply? Walk me through. I'm curious, like in hindsight, the pandemic, good for business, bad for business. I'm sure there's maybe some supply chain issues maybe you ran into, but talk to me through that a little bit because that's like a year into your business, right? Yeah. Like you're a year and a half into launching. You're like, oh my gosh, look at this. Like this is gonna, it's almost like panic, right? Like what's going to happen here?
Well, we were actually, even though, so we, started like conceptualizing in 2018 and started all the manufacturing like process and everything. It took us a long time. And that's like just our overall philosophy in terms of how we develop products. It took us a long time. This was very new. We at first had a hard time finding like a manufacturing partner because they're like, wait, what? You want to manufacture from scratch? Like, I don't know what that means in the world of beauty. And we very quickly learned that is like, oh, most of the products that we're using are like some kind of stock formula with like a personalized scent and texture or whatever. So it was hard for us to find a partner. And then also just, we're small, we have small MOQs. So it took us a little bit of time to get to somebody. But then on top of that, it took us almost like 12 months even to formulate to a place where we were happy with it. We were planning to launch in the early summer at the beginning of COVID, not knowing that COVID was happening. Now, we ended up having to delay it a little bit because of the supply issues. but not two. I think we launched in like July, right? July of 2020. So a couple of months into it, we were, of course, like, if anybody who remembers that time of like the early months of COVID, everyone was panicked in terms of like what was going to happen, like how was the year going to kind of like evolve. And we were like, oh, great, we're launching a new business in the beginning of a pandemic. So although, again, we had a little bit of that like delay in terms of launch, but a lot of the things that, that we just talked about right now is in a way like pandemic, the behaviors of consumers during the pandemic helped us a little bit from that kind of taking time to understand, to really learn about a new ritual per se, because that's what we were trying to educate on with our first product is like, you're adding this extra step to, for like kind of wellness of your scalp and hair. So it's an extra step. It's another behavior. It's kind of a new way to like just look at hair care in general. And so people had the time to do it.
Yeah, it's like those things that happened during the pandemic, like you're talking about, like it was people, I didn't think about it from like a personal care standpoint, but you're right. Like people were going to spend a lot more time and research on, what can I get delivered to my house that's going to provide maybe the same kind of benefits, right? That I was maybe getting in the salon, or just exploring new things, right? Like, I also feel like a lot of the world was, the disposable income went up in the world because people couldn't spend it on other things. So they were spending it on products, and that, it's the same kind of thing with like mobile video, like video meetings and mobile payments, like that, all that stuff accelerated years, right? Like several years faster than it would have.
Yeah, they got really accelerated. Yeah.
All right, so you're launching in the pandemic. What was your guys' first launch? Was it all D2C? Like, explain to me a little bit about that, your kind of launch.
Yeah, so we launched in the August of 2020. It was purely D2C. And, we took a very kind of conservative, meticulous approach where we're like, we really wanted to spend the first 12 months, it really being like a proof of concept. And, we self-funded, we bootstrapped, we didn't go down the route of, raising, tons of pre-revenue money. We still to date haven't talked a little more about that, but it was very kind of like one step at a time. Like Shaz is an engineer, an MBA, and she is, she definitely is like on one end of being very kind of meticulous and methodical about every little step. And I'm definitely on the other side, which I think is always really good. So I feel like kind of why make our partnership is so good, because they can kind of balance each other out. But yeah, we only launched with one SKU. There was 2 variants. So it was like our, to date, it's our best seller. It's a pre-wash mask. We have 2 different variants. So it means 2 different formulas. One that's for kind of more fine, thin, straight hair, and the other one's for curly, thick hair. And, we were bootstrapped, self-funded. We had very little marketing budget. We onboarded a wonderful designer who was just kind of going out on her own, who to date is still with us, and she's our creative director. And then we did kind of everything else ourselves. We didn't really work with any sort of agencies, really no paid budgets at all. And everything was organic. And it was really kind of focusing on telling our story organically on social media, and then focusing on email marketing and, really kind of capturing that data point of emails and building that relationship at that part of the funnel with the email marketing. And it was purely D2C. And then, as we launched, we very organically started getting a lot of love. We, of course, it was like the email went out to like, maybe, 100, 200 of our like friends and family and like friends of friends, whoever was in our email list. And we did start building our Instagram prior to launch. So there was like a little bit of a small built-in community as well that was, already kind of familiar with us and, kind of building this brand. But we very much kind of very quickly kind of got the attention of different really great like beauty, the editorial world. We got featured in like Vogue India and Birdie. Editors, we definitely started building relationships with editors, which was just literally like straight DMs where, we were pitching our product and our story, and it got picked up, and, we got sent out samples to a whole bunch of different, writers and contributors in the beauty editorial world. And yeah, we started kind of really getting featured as like a, an editor's choice. And most importantly, customers started within like month 3, we started seeing this pretty strong repeat purchase rate, which kept on building and building and building. To date, we have somewhere between like a 55 to 60% customer repeat purchase rate every single month. And that started almost kind of from the beginning as, as people were starting to run out of their very first product. And from there came starting to then reach out to different kind of, strategic retail partners. We did launch with Credo after about 12 months of being in the market. And then a couple of other small kind of retail partners. And then a few years later, we were able to get into Sephora, which we can kind of get into that in a bit. But primarily it was like, we didn't have any sort of existing relationships. We didn't really know how to really go about even reaching out to buyers from retailers prior to launch. So we were like, let's just put all of our focus into creating a really good one product and telling our story and really trying to, share that education on all organic channels. And then let's hope someone likes it and then tells the next person. So that the first 12 months, and that's kind of really still our approach to date as well. Of course, we've done, we've pulled a bunch of other different levers as well, but it really goes back to being super product focused, really creating something that's of value, something that's really different in the market, and making sure that once you enter the Shaz and Kiks world, you love it, and there's really nothing else out there. So you really build that loyalty from the very beginning.
Yeah, no, it's really exciting when you start to see the traction, right? And like people are reordering. That's when it really starts. It's one thing to order it once, but to order it again and again and start to see that traction. There's nothing like it, right? It's like that. Going back to something, it's kind of a question for both you guys are mentioning. You don't have experience in maybe the industry, like the beauty industry per se, but I think in a way, I'm always a glass half full guy. So I see it as an advantage, right? Because there's always those preconceived notions and there's those things that people in the industry, they kind of have their blinders on. We all get our blinders on when you're in a certain industry, right? And you kind of start to not pay attention to what's happening outside. And so I think it's good for folks to come into an industry that don't have a background in it because they can kind of disrupt it. That's where the disruptors come from typically, right? And in certain industries. But you guys obviously both very accomplished and have your own background. So you mentioned a little bit about, the different kind of playing to each other's strengths. Did that just come naturally? You guys just kind of knew, hey, I'm going to focus on marketing. You can focus on finance, that kind of stuff. Did you guys have to really, as you're building this and going along, talk about that? Or was it just you kind of knew your lanes because obviously you guys being sisters knew each other so well?
Yeah, I think it was a little bit of both, to be honest, because we're very close. So we also know each other's strengths and weaknesses. And I think it's sort of two different things. There's sort of just skills and the roles we've had, right, from our various careers. But then there's also a personality thing. Like Kiku said, because of her incredibly obsessive passion, this company wouldn't have even probably started if it wasn't for her. But for me, I look at everything in a very structured, methodical. You kind of learn those skills also when you're running big businesses within a larger corporation. You have to be able to always be looking at things that way, and a little bit of even managing P&L, kind of that philosophy a little bit. So for me, along with a number of different things, it was what I wanted to really do is before we put a ton of money into this is A, is the proof of concept real? And then B, if it is, then I wanted to make sure that we build a good basic set of business fundamentals with strong unit economics. We have disciplined cash management, kind of all those other aspects versus the glamour of, launching a new product or something like that. So it's just, I think that's where we really balance each other out is I bring a lot of that to it. I think there's we naturally know our skills and our fortes. So we naturally that's without even having too many super org structure conversations. We knew where we were gonna kind of gravitate towards. And then a lot of we're still super small, and it's very much a 50-50 partnership, and it's a small team. And so most things we're always I'm not saying that we agree on everything, but we're always sharing with one another, right? We're never making decisions, whether it be small to big, in our own little siloed worlds. This is, we always say at the end of the one of the main reasons to start this company was we were we just wanted to hang out and spend more time together and do something, right? So I feel we never want to lose sight of that, which I don't think we ever have, and hopefully we never will.
But yeah, I feel like there's certain things that we knew that we were gonna, like, I was gonna do X, Y, and Z, and she was gonna do A, B, C. And then we're always sharing. We're always like, kind of talking about kind of think about this. So this is obviously my area, but how do you feel about it, right? So I feel like we always want to make sure that we are keeping each other in the loop, and we are ultimately making decisions together. Especially the big ones. I think and then there are certain things where, like, when there comes to be some more like daily tactical things, there are like, okay, like, you do this and I'm going to do this, right? Just so like we're, everyone's plate is like around the same amount filled.
Yeah. Well, in that same vein, right? That's great. You guys recognize that, know each other very well. But in that same vein, right? You're sisters. So how do you keep it like, so there's plenty of horror stories out there about, getting in business with family, and there's a lot of successes too, but like, you guys have obviously made it work. And how do you do that? Like, how do you separate, when you're doing like stuff with your family together as a family and try to keep work out of it? Or does it, you don't have to worry about it? Like, talk to me about that dynamic a little bit, about how you guys make it work. There's no secret answer. You said there's no secret answer? It sounds like it just happens, right?
So my husband is also a part of the business. He kind of looks over a lot of like the operational and like the warehousing and a lot of those things. So there is even a third element of family in this.
Wow, okay, yeah.
But I think it's just, I think we're all very, like, we're still very respectful towards one another, right? So there's kind of that. And it's just our natural dynamic between the two of us has always been this way. We're not, like, we've never really, even as sisters, like, forget about the business, like, had any, like, really big fights, Like, we just know how to, I don't know, manage each other, and like even if there is something that is like, let's say, controversial, just like work through it in a not like super aggressive way, which ends in a fight, like, so we're pretty good about that. And then to your other question about like, how do we keep things separate? So yeah, we are also very close as a family. I have 2 daughters who are very close to Kiku and her husband. So, and we spend a lot of time together because like Kiku and her husband also just come down, like she lives in Dallas, I live in Austin. They come down, at least like once a month and like spend a few days with us here. So we're also in very close as a family, which kind of helps where it's like, even discussion about Shaz and Kiks around the dinner table is almost like it's like, it's not a chore to talk about it. It's like, even with my kids are like young adults at this point, and they all love to be like, hey, Kiku, like some of your captions in your posts are getting way too long, so it's like, don't worry, there's a lot of critiquing going on. Yeah, like my husband, who has nothing to do with his own, everyone has their opinions. It is like, but it is because it really feels like and then there's our parents, very supportive. They're not part of the business, but they're very supportive. And also it is something that's personal to them because there is like this, like the heritage part of it. Right. And so much of like, they are part of the impetus of it. So I feel like we all kind of enjoy talking about it, even in like fun ways. Oh my God, like us looking stupid on, our Instagram reels or like, or even just talking about like, consumer behavior. And we want, we're, Shaz's kids and, Gen Zers. And, so we'll kind of as a family, as we're having dinner in a non-serious way, we'll talk about, what do you guys think about
purchase behaviors or like trends and their, So I think the goal of it is also like of course, this business means everything to us, and it is whatever, the 10th family member almost. But we also we just don't take it so seriously. Again, like it's like there is like, of course we take it seriously, but I don't know if that makes sense. But we also just like it's not anything that is like life or death. It's like we can like it's there. It's like present in all of our families' lives, whether they are actually working on it or not. There's some of the family members that actually work on it, some just there as like support systems or opinion givers, but we treat it as almost as like another family member, and we never take it seriously to the point where we are we let negatively affect our relationship. So I think it's always like it's important to like keep in mind, like that, like it's like it's okay. It's like it's just like it's a company at the end of the day. It is one of the most important things in our lives, of course. But also, like, what's the very most important thing is our sisterhood and our family, and so, like,
this entity cannot, can never, should ever negatively impact it.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I think it's probably stronger. The business is probably stronger overall because you don't take it as seriously, if that makes sense, right? Like, it's, it's like because of that, that's how it thrives, right? And that's how you guys continue to grow it. So,
then when things are not going well, like, that's the thing where like me and Shaz will be like, on the couch, like just commiserating together about it, and just like in this like almost comical sisterly way. I don't even, it's like, like, and we'll like joke about it and cry about it. But like, again, it's like, we just can't take it too seriously because you're really going to like drive yourself crazy if you do.
Yeah, no, I get you. Walk me. So obviously you have been, you talked about, let's kind of just talk about the last couple of years then, launching, growing that email list, but then like you mentioned some kind of independent retailers, but then talk to us about the growth, kind of what that's been like the past few years.
Yeah. So actually, I will say in all candidness, like last year, like the last half of 2023 and then the first half of 2024 was like a very tough environment for us. And I think, with like inflation, and we are a prestige hair brand, with just a lot of the dynamics from last year that kind of trickled into this year as well. And we've heard this from many of our, founder peers, right? Like it was a tough year. We were having some like really great growth until like kind of in the at the end of 2023, we're like, what's happening? And we had some resource issues. So it was a tough year. Of course, we did have our, Sephora. So we launched in Sephora in the middle of 2023. And we're online only with them at the moment. So that was something really exciting. And, but one of the big takeaways from that whole experience was like, the launch is the easiest part. A retailer like a Sephora, which was unlike any of these like kind of smaller retailers that we had been with before, right? Because after that, like once you launch, great, and the first like couple of months, yay, but then the pressure around the performance, like every month is a lot. So, and like I said, it was challenging. It was a challenging year. So a lot of the things that we ended up having to do, especially because we had some resource issues, I didn't actually join full time until the beginning of this year. So after a lot of these like resource challenges of last year, like it was literally almost like just Kiku by herself. So you can imagine in those kinds of situations, you just like have to prioritize what you're doing, right? You don't have the money to do it, you don't have the people to do it, so you have to really like focus and prioritize on, and until we can get into a better place. So like by the beginning of the year, like once I came on board full time, plus like we had some other, moving pieces in terms of team, we were in a better place to be able to like do a little bit more. And I think that kind of turned the needle. But I will say, these are just like those lessons that you kind of learn on the journey that you go on, that at that point, though, we were very much, and I think Kiku had, or maybe I had mentioned this earlier, is like up until that point, like we did everything, like we just had this like such a scrappy mindset. So everything we did was very organic. We didn't do any paid ads. We didn't really do any of that, especially because in 2020 through middle of 2023, like that was still working for us. But that was like one of those pivotal things where it's like, oh, like just doing kind of organic and gifting, like it's not going to be enough to get us now over this like kind of plateau hump. So we really had to at that time like focus a little bit more on activities that were going to be more like bottom of the funnel and more quicker returns, right? So that we can which is why then we like started really spending quite a bit on, or at least for us, it's not like huge budgets, but like started investing into paid ads, Google ads, and doing a little bit more of these and that's again, like where we had to like shift our priorities a little bit. So I think, it's just, again, being on that entrepreneurial journey, you have to be able to like navigate and shift and be, kind of be okay with those changes. And what you started off thinking you were going to be may not be very much for sure will not be, where you have to navigate through. Yeah. And it's like, and even like the beauty that, again, like from like 2020 to 2023, just in 3 years, things changed so much. Definitely scrappy, organic, really kind of raw storytelling, all those things with like, $0 marketing dollars worked really great for us for those first 3 years. And then, as things changed and people were, again, consumers change, behaviors change, a lot more competitors come in the market, economies change. And that kind of approach we saw was like, okay, we can't be like our forever approach. We're going to have to pivot. We're going to have to get more people onto the team, and we're going to have to be figuring out how to like a lot more, have to spend money, which like, I know. And so, so like this year has been, it's like from the first half of this year and now this kind of the second half of this year that we're in has been like drastically different. And it's like, and we hope that we continue on this trajectory because we're on a lot better trajectory now in the second half of the year because we've been implemented a lot of those changes that were, that we didn't, kind of in hindsight, we should have planned for a little bit earlier. When we launched at Sephora, we probably should have had more teammates and we should have like, had like a little bit of a different marketing, channel mix with the budgets that kind of supported that. But yeah, you don't know what you don't know. And then, so you have to kind of sometimes go through these hard times and then try to figure out quickly how to find solutions. And so, yeah, this year has been like a big year of transition and kind of taking the business to the next level. That we had to like very kind of quickly move into in the beginning of this year in order to really kind of get to the next stage. And especially when you're in a big retailer like Sephora, I mean, you are up against you're up against P&G and Unilever owned brands and Shiseido owned brands,
budgets,
and it's
right?
like it can't be like exactly.
No, and I think for sharing thanks for sharing the story because I think entrepreneurship can be very glamorized, right? And I love entrepreneurship in general, but like I do appreciate sharing, and it's not all roses all the time, right? It's always little thorns that come up. I always use the phrase 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and you just got to keep going forward. There's always going to be setbacks. There's always going to be things in your business, whether it's people related, whether it's manufacturer related, whether it's, finance related. There's always going to be little things that crop up, and it's just like figuring out a way to solve them the right way, when you think it's the right way. And sometimes you gamble on things and it works. Sometimes it doesn't. That's what business is, right? That's why Amy tells them to our leadership team, it's like, we're in business. This is a part of it. We're going to try this. We're going to see if this works. We think this, you have a hypothesis and seeing if it works. So thanks for sharing kind of, the not so glamorous side of entrepreneurship.
It has not been all rainbows and unicorns. No, for And I feel like whenever, like, when you have personal conversations with your other entrepreneur friends, everyone is saying the same thing, right? But then a lot of times you go to these, these talks and these sessions or these, webinars, and that same person is like, oh my God, this thing just happened beautifully. And it's frustrating because it's like, again, because that's not reality. And it's also like for anyone that is aspiring to be that, or they're maybe at the beginning of their journey, there should be, we've like over-sexified entrepreneurship and starting your thing. It is like, it can be the most wonderful thing, but you should also know that, no, just because you like, things just don't happen organically, and I feel like that is a lot of the conversation that we hear for external facing conversations, that other entrepreneurs kind of share with, kind of with more public platforms. But that's just not the case. Since we're always like, we want to be honest, like it's like, it can be the most amazing thing, but it can also be the most just gut-wrenching thing. And both those things can happen in one day.
Like the highest of highs and the lowest of lows can like all come in a very short period of time.
That's very true. I say that's what I use for entrepreneur. I use that to describe entrepreneurship too. The highs are high, the lows are low. It's like and you see both of it. So awesome. Well, tell us what's on the horizon for Shaz and Kiks. What's maybe the rest of 2024, and we got 2025. Like, what do you guys have new products coming out? Like, what do you foresee as maybe the next evolution of the business?
We're, we've kind of along with this like journey of this year, and something that actually Sephora really encouraged us was to really dig into our premium positioning. I think that like it was something that we always kind of like danced around because you're always like, you want to be like, oh, I'm accessible, right? And of course we are, but no, we're a premium. We're not a drugstore prestige brand, and they really kind of push us being like, you guys are premium, like. Know that, like, love it, and talk about it. Why are you premium? They're like, and we agree, your products are premium. They are of higher quality and high performing. So you guys have to really own it and really lean into it and make sure that you are really carving out that positioning for you. So, we've kind of, so even from, and that was also a big shift that we really started like really strengthening and leaning into
as part of this like year's transition. So I just kind of want to jump in and say that like continuing on, we've like, anywhere from like the way like our, we're hyper focused on our D2C, of course, our e-com, and really making sure that like that is always functioning better and better, right? So anywhere from obviously the look and feel and the branding of the site, and also just the constant, kind of conversion optimization that we're doing. We're testing, we're working with different partners that are constantly helping us. We're measuring and tracking and optimizing our landing pages and making sure that our D2C core is always growing and staying kind of on top of things. I wanted to first say that because I knew like Shaz was not going to mention. So I think, again, like just continuing on of like really strengthening our positioning and our branding and our D2C, which will always be kind of core to our business. And then I'll let kind of Shaz talk about the other new fun things.
Yeah. Well, I was just saying, Kiku, that sounds fun too. I mean, I feel like it just naturally happens at that stage of the business you're at. Like, it just like, you kind of like, okay, we got to be a little more, I would say grown up about this, but like, it's like when you're starting the business, you neglect some of those little things that you talked about. And it's like, okay, we got to polish things up a little bit. And I get it. So sorry, Shaz, go ahead.
Totally.
No, I think like it is important, just like to that point, is like to always be looking at it and making sure, make those incremental like changes and constantly be looking at all of the different touch points of your company, whether it's your website or your socials, your messaging, all that stuff. So like that is definitely, I think, like also a marketing message that, both Kiku and I have like degrees in marketing, and like they teach you that all the time, but it really was like Sephora that pushed us to do it. And we're like, oh yeah, we should really be doing that, again, especially in terms of the positioning and like the messaging, but always on this continuous journey of improvement for sure. What I was going to say is that I think we have been, since we launched, actually, we've always had conversations around Amazon, around whether or not to launch on Amazon, right? I know we've also had this conversation, and I would say up until probably like just, maybe this last year, every year that we thought about it, the answer was like, no, it doesn't feel like the place for a prestige beauty brand. We didn't think that that's where customers were going to go to find and discover prestige beauty necessarily. It seemed a little bit more commoditized platform. So, but I think one of the big changes that we've seen over the past 12 months is the fact of like now, just like not just beauty, but just like anything that's a little bit more premium and luxury, that people are still looking at Amazon to be able to find those. And I think that's like it's just such a huge shift in just overall consumer behavior. And so, this is the first time we've been like, and then not only that, but, we start hearing Sephora talking about Amazon as a competitor, which we'd never heard them saying before. And so, like add all of those pieces of the puzzle up, and you're like, oh, wait, like we should. And then, and also like looking at all of our own consumer behaviors, because I know big, small, like doesn't even matter what brand. If I come across something, the first thing I will do is go to see if they're available on Amazon. And if they're not, sure, I'll buy it from their website or whatever. But it's still, I feel like it is just becoming ubiquitous consumer behavior. So to not be on Amazon now seems a little bit of like this, it's like you're leaving something on the table because people are it can also be a discovery platform, not just like, oh, I saw it here and then I'm going to go buy it on Amazon. So that is for us, like one of our big things for next year, or like our big initiatives is going to be Amazon, and then continuing really to grow Sephora and we've already had some discussions around in-store. So, in-store Sephora is we're online at the moment. Yeah. And, and then the overall goal, as I said, like, I think I said it right at the beginning, is like, we want you to look forward to your wash routine and your hair care routine and your wash day. And we want you to do that with Shaz Kiks. So we want, our big dream goal is just to be like number one at hair care category.
Yeah, and we have a new product development, which I think is always like at the end of the day probably one of the most fun things. That is something that me and Shaz one of the parts, a main part of the business that we do very like 50-50. We both are like, kind of equally involved in creating the new products. And I think Shaz mentioned this in the very beginning, is that we formulate everything from scratch. A lot of it is like, kind of like with my, we'll do a lot of kind of due diligence and research around the different Ayurvedic ingredients that specifically help address whatever scalp and or hair like outcome that we're looking for. And we kind of take those raw ingredients, and then Shaz really kind of works on that innovation part. And we have a wonderful chemist who we work with, specializes in natural beauty formulations. And so it's a long process for us. Every single product takes a lot. Can take up to 12 months. And we start kind of the ideation a lot with our community. We have almost 1,000-person like loyalist group that really helps us understand what their needs are, what they're looking for, anything from like, a problem solution to like a type of like texture to like what kind of packaging, what kind of fragrance. So we love working with our customer base and our audience and our community to help us inform, what we want to formulate next. And it's always taking kind of, whether it be a new category in hair care that doesn't exist, or if something that's already existing that's just like kind of old and stale and like has been the same for decades, and trying to push the needle on like how we can make that again more exciting and new. And we have some new stuff coming up in the new year that we've been working on, and so we're excited to launch with that. And it's like we are foraying our first time into good for you styling products. We've like our existing products and our SKUs right now really focus on kind of the wellness of your scalp and the health of your hair. But this is our first one that we're working on, more of like still keeping all that like goodness, but really seeing how it can move into the styling world of hair care.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, great. We can't wait to see where you guys go. And I mean, congrats on your success thus far, and can't wait to see you guys are doing it the right way and the right attitude. So last but not least, where can people find the brand, or where do you want to send them, and where can they find your products at?
Well, you can find us on our website, shazandkiks.com, SHAZANDKIKS. You can also the same handle on Instagram and TikTok, and then check us out at Sephora.com. We're there. So you have multiple places that you can find us. So we'd be happy to have you.
Awesome. Well, thank you both, Shaz and Kiku. Awesome conversation. Could ask you a million other questions about it, but just for the sake, the length of the episode, we'll keep it there. But thanks so much for coming on today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Ryan. This is so much fun.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks to Shaz and Kiku from Shaz and Kiks for being on the show. Connect with them, follow them, check out the things that they're doing. It should be exciting to watch their growth here the rest of 2024 and into 2025. And hopefully you've enjoyed a lot of insights and just practical stories you hear in these episodes. We'd love for you to rate, review us, leave a comment wherever you're viewing this, listening to this. It really helps the podcast grow. So please do that on your preferred provider of choice. We really do appreciate it. And we will see you on the next episode of the Expert CPG Commerce podcast.